Hey human, welcome to the Human Void. Are you a hypocrite? I know I am. Aren't we all? In this new episode, the first one of 2022, we'll explore a couple of questions. Are we all hypocrites? Does modern society require for us to be hypocrites all the time? Let us go into the void for a little bit and think about it. Get it? Have you ever been in a hurry and threw a piece of trash aiming at the trash can while walking on the street, missed, and then thought, meh, it's not like the plant will die for a small piece of paper or something? Or something along the lines of, meh, my taxes pay for someone to come and pick this up for me anyway. But then you went ahead and harshly judged someone else for doing the exact same thing? Have you ever accidentally said something inappropriate in front of a child, and then when you realize your mistake, you told the child, do as I say, not as I do? Well, you might be a hypocrite. Now, you might associate hypocrisy only with extremely and clearly hypocritical people in your life, or in politics, the media, or just with people that are big shots or important in your community. But let's start with the very basics, shall we? Let's start with a dictionary definition of hypocrisy. And for this example, I chose a definition in Merriam, webster. The simple definition of hypocrisy is the following: the behavior of people who do things that they tell other people not to do, behavior that does not agree with what someone claims to believe or feel. Or the full definition, which states a feigning to be what one is not, or to believe what one does not. Behavior that contradicts what one claims to believe or feel. Sound familiar? Hypocrisy is in fact so common in everyday life, we don't even seem to realize we are being hypocrites all the time. Most of the time, we are being hypocrites in a small scale, rarely affecting our lives or those of others, at least not in the long term. We've all been there at some point in our lives, and of course, these are just petty examples, but we seem to often take definitions into the extreme. Either someone is a massive and noticeable hypocrite, either because they were knowingly hypocritical about a current big issue and were blatant about it, or because they are a public figure, and we have a hard time avoiding this person being a hypocrite for the whole world to see. But we seem to forget about all the little things that we often do out of the public view or the view of those that surround us. These are, a lot of the time, out of our control. You see, modern society, and not just in the 21st century, but probably for most of the time humans have lived in societies, require for there to be some hypocrisy in order to psychologically survive in the world. All those little things we don't say we do, but we do them anyway. All those little things we say we do, when in fact, we always do the opposite. And if someone asks, you will probably say something along the lines of, I would never do such a thing, shame on you for thinking that of me. We always seem to notice hypocrisy only when it's really noticeable, but not in the everyday things we do. No matter where you come from, absolutely no one is a saint. Not you, not me, not your sweet grandma, not your local pastor, and most definitely not your favorite politician or political party. But it's not always because we live in a horrible world of sinners and degenerates. It's because being a hypocrite, or at least the common definition that most people have of hypocrite, is actually just being human. Hypocrisy is as common as dishonesty. Maintaining a high moral ground is a lot of work. If we weren't hypocrites from time to time, anything we said could be interpreted as we having to do these things all the time, such as giving to charity or abstaining from certain activities seen as wrong or immoral by others. So what we often do instead is to say we do or don't do certain things, because as humans, we are wired to take the path of least resistance. The path of least resistance being, of course, when we choose the easiest way to achieve something. Going back to hypocrisy though, there's a cognitive dissonance every time our behavior doesn't fit with the attitudes and behaviors to which we currently subscribe to. We attempt to resolve these in many different ways. One of the most common methods we use to regulate the cognitive dissonance we experience when we do something that is opposite to what we stand for is to rationalize our current behavior. We do this all the time, from insignificant life choices such as wearing something we don't like so as to impress at work and hopefully get a promotion, I guess we can call this socially acceptable hypocrisy, to bigger choices that might affect others in a more profound way, such as telling children or teenagers not to smoke when in fact we drink and smoke ourselves, or taking the high moral ground in a situation when we are probably the least equipped to do so. Of course, a lot of the time we speak from experience. We tell others to do as we say and as we do because we recognize these defects in ourselves. But the problem arises when we are not aware we are actually doing it, or we don't realize that we are being hypocrites because, God forbid, we can be one. Others are hypocrites, not us. The latter situation is usually the most common. We don't always realize we are being hypocrites because a lot of acceptable behavior is, in fact, hypocrisy. There are always many examples of people being hypocrites about important matters that can negatively affect others, and they keep doing this on purpose, which would indicate sociopathic tendencies. But let's leave that for another video. Going back to hypocrisy once again and the cognitive dissonance caused by it, one of the most immediately convenient ways to reduce this dissonance is by hitting the old adage, practice what you preach. It's definitely not the easiest way to go about life most of the time, but it's the most rewarding, and it's the way that will help in living an uncluttered and thus happier life. On the flip side, if we do not practice what we preach, we end up feeling as if we are losing control, as if our mind and our intentions go one way, but our actions imply that we are going in a different direction. So, practicing what we preach is a way to reclaim control in our lives. When we don't practice what we preach, that is, when we're being hypocrites, we are employing a form of procrastination. According to psychology PhD at Carleton University in Canada, Tim Pitchell, when we procrastinate in this context, we tend to act impulsively and give in to feeling good in the short term, while abandoning our intended actions to achieve our longer-term goals. This by itself undermines our ability for self-control. This means that we constantly delay action to self-control our behavior and align it with our values, and of course, what we actually preach. As I mentioned before, we usually attempt to rationalize our behavior to mitigate some of the effects of the dissonance going on in our minds when we do something that is opposite to what we say. But this usually makes a procrastination to change our behavior even worse. But there is something about that dissonance we experience when we don't do as we say. The fact that we are often aware of it means this can be an instrument for change in our behavior. I'm going to cite yet another expert in the social fields. According to Jeff Stone, PhD in social psychology at the University of Arizona, we can think of this dissonance as an evolutionary warning system built into our brains to warn us when our regulation and control of behavior is breaking down and to let us know that we need to take action. In this case, hypocrisy could be considered a psychological tool and a necessary catalyst for change, so as to align ourselves with our own set of values. Now, most of us are aware that we need to minimize our own hypocrisy as much as possible and be true to ourselves and others whenever possible, but can we actually do it? This is where it gets truly subjective. I say maybe we worry too much about these things sometimes. I believe we're all hypocrites in some kind of spectrum. So it's because of this, I think it's okay to be aware that sometimes you have to be a hypocrite to maintain some balance. Own your hypocrisy. It's in those moments you can realize if you happen to find you're a massive hypocrite and need to work on it. After all, acknowledging a problem is the first step towards being better. But what do you think, human? Do you think we're all hypocrites? Let me know in the comments down below. So thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to share my content if you like the video. You can also like, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon to receive a notification about my next video. This can help the channel grow and be noticed. So stay tuned for future content and Happy New Year. Hopefully 2022 will be considerably better than 2020 and 2021 were. Thanks for watching.